Good day, everyone. This is day 12 of the 28-day challenge that some of us here at the Ontario Gorean Assembly have been doing. And today I want to talk just a little bit about as far as what Master Morality is. Oftentimes you'll be online and you'll hear people talk about as far as slave morality, but there's not a lot said about what Master Morality is. The Gorean books talk a lot about the fact that you are limited by the sword of others, and the fact that as Goreans is that if you've been around at all, especially in the discussion groups or even at some of the meetings, we have a tendency of disagreeing a lot with one another. That's commonplace, is because when people read the books, they're taking it from the viewpoint of their own background, of their own history. All of us have come from a different place in life. All of us have different interests. We have our own quirks as well. And one of the things is that with Master Morality that is very strong, especially here in Ontario, is the fact that we are fiercely independent. We may belong to an assembly with other Goreans, but each master is independent of his own. You'll find that in other places, especially online with the online Goreans, is that they have a tendency of being in one of two camps. The first camp is basically made up of pacifists, people that are, that have a softer, kinder view of Gore, and then you have the antagonizers and the instigators. And basically that camp is all they want to do is bitch and argue and fight about anything. You can tell them that the sky is blue and they will bitch and argue with you that no, it's not blue, it's navy, kind of thing. So those are the two main camps that you have within Gore. As well, when you venture online, sometimes it's easy to be able to differentiate between those that are striving to live Gore on a daily basis in their real life and those that are basically role players. Their Gore consists of basically logging into FetLife, or logging into Second Life, or back in the day logging into like Yahoo groups, those kind of things. Most of them are basically role players. Once they log out of their computer, their Gore experience journey ends right there. Now, with Master Morality, one of the things is that it talks about, as far as the Gorean ethos, is the fact that we place a lot of emphasis on strength. We place a lot of emphasis on integrity. We place a lot of emphasis on freedom. With me, one of the things that annoys me to no end, and those that have been in some of the boards, or more importantly have met me in person, is that I'm not a big fan of when someone else tries to impose their view or their will or their version of Gore on me. I'm more than capable of reading the books myself. I am more than capable of coming up with my own conclusions of what works best for me. What works best for me and how I grew up will be completely different than, say, someone that grew up in a sheltered home that was basically a mama's boy, has the whole education thing, is a left wing, well, they're weak as well, but a left wing, view of the world, libertarian possibly, whatever. Those people don't have a lot of use for them. Me, I'm more basically brash and brawn. Grew up with a little bit of an edge, kind of a thing. Hang out with a group that definitely has a little bit of an edge, and enjoying life to the max. I don't have to sit back and worry about what happens if I do this, what happens if I do that. It's like, no, basically, both balls to the floor and just go for it. That's basically how I grew up. One of the things as well is that with Master Morality is that you need to have a clear definition of what it is that you stand for, and have the balls to be able to take a stand. With me over the years, I've taken stands several stands that are not popular within mainline gore. One of the first issues that people, I've been called a rainbow warrior, I've been called a, a 1% outlaw biker, I've been called a rebel gore, a Gorean, I've been called an outlaw within gore, numerous things, which is all garbage. I remember a few years ago, it wasn't that long ago, probably about 3 or 4 years ago, a dragon ended up coming into the Gorean gathering place. And he ended up basically trashing someone that I don't know at all. I know that he hangs out with Bear and with Nair, but his I can't remember his name, but he used to live in the UK, but he now lives in Australia now. Similar to Amadeus or something like that. But Dragon was attacking him, saying that basically his gatherings that he was holding in England is that they were BDSM based. That they're all they were play parties, and there's sex going on and this and that and everything else. I was almost certain that wasn't the case, and so I challenged him on it. I said, "Where are you getting your information from?" And Dragon would, he would duck and weave, and that's not important, and I know these things are true because I heard it from a reliable source, and blah 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 blah. And I kept challenging on him, and he would not basically come up with who it was that had actually been out to these events, but was basically he was taking a dig at this Gorean that was living in the UK. So I called him on it, and it became a huge shitstorm on FetLife kind of things. But I stuck by my guns because I knew it wasn't the case. As well as there was three other people came forward that said they'd been out to these Gorean gatherings, and that's exactly what they were. They were strictly Gorean gatherings. There wasn't any real kink going on. There wasn't any play party. People weren't running around with whips and those kind of things. It was a normal, typical Gorean gathering. Now, saying that is at the same time, I know that the gentleman that was hosting this gathering is that he is kinky. And that doesn't play into this at all, outside of the fact that you have an element within Silk and Steel and within that group of people that grew up with the belief that you cannot be kinky and be Gorean at all. It's impossible. To me, that's basically BS. It's garbage. Of course you can. That's the same as saying that you can't be Gorean and enjoy sex. It's right in the books, guys. It's human nature. Some of us enjoy sex a lot more than others, but we still enjoy sex. Another thing with Master Morality is very big, is that when you have people that are trying to impose their will, or they're trying to exert their authority over you, you'll find this online a lot. It's like, well, I've been around for so many years, and I've read the book this amount of times, or you get the infamous we. We Goreans don't believe in that, or we Goreans that, we think that you're this or that or whatever. People start talking like that, challenge them on it right away. Number one is that they are imposing that they speak on behalf of all Goreans. They don't. In fact, very few Goreans can agree on almost anything. Secondly is that by having that air of authority, they have taken it upon themselves that they become the voice of gore. I.e. Bear has been famous for this over the years. Malkinius, the last 3 or 4 years, has made a real effort to try to be the voice of gore. You have Krell, with his little website that he has basically tried to do the same thing. They're not. They're just normal people that have their viewpoints, that have their opinions, that have their own way of looking at gore that suits them. Nothing wrong with that. But when they try telling other people that what they're doing is wrong, or how they interpret the books is wrong because it does not fit into their image, go tell them to fuck themselves. If it's based on the books, you can find it in the books. And if it works for you, then it's gore. Plain and simple. Each journey is different. Hopefully the end game or the final destination is the same. But how we get there and how long it takes us to get there and which way that we choose to go, that's completely up to us. That's one of the beauties of being Gorean and reading the books, is what appeals to one person might not appeal to somebody else. You'll find a lot of online Goreans is that they are very down on anything that's demonstrative. You'll find people that say, well, talking about the silks in the books, and if a girl actually decides to make her own silks, that's just fluff and everything else. That has nothing to do with being Gorean. Yeah, it does. It's mentioned in the books. The books talk numerous times of the fact that there are symbolisms and there are rituals and there are protocols and that are eccentric, that are key elements of what makes a slave, whether it be the serves, whether it be the dance, whether it be the dress code, whether it be their mannerisms. All those things set them aside, and that just reinforces the fact that they are a slave. If it's found in the books, then it is definitely Gorean. A Gorean dance, a Gorean position, a Gorean serve, a Gorean dress. All those things should be encouraged, not knocked down and ridiculed. One of the other things as well is that when you have masters that will have slaves kind of things, and they address their slaves in a certain fashion, or they have particular rituals that they enjoy. They don't necessarily absolutely have to come from the books. But each master that I know here in Ontario, they have their own individuality stamp and their own individual flair, how they run their household, what they expect from their slaves. There is not a cookie cutter format where everyone has to be exactly the same. As we are all individuals. We all have our own style. We all have our own way of enforcing the rules. It's the same as like within the Ontario Gorean Assembly. Probably some of the heatest discussions that we have center around sports. I'm a Boston Bruins fan, as you can see. We have several that are blue and white Toronto Maple Leaf fans. We have a Chicago Blackhawk fan. We even have someone that's a big Tampa Bay Lightning fan. A couple of the slaves are Dallas Stars, as far as that they enjoy the Dallas Stars, and partly because a couple of the players come from the Kitchener-Waterloo area. But and then we even have John Gibson out in Anaheim. That a couple of people really enjoy the Anaheim Ducks because of John Gibson. So does that mean that there's one particular right way? No, it just makes for some fun, heated discussions and trashing each other from time to time in a fun manner. So as far as Master Morality, two things that I would like to encourage you is that read the books. When you find something within the books that piques your interest, as far as that you would like to incorporate that into your daily life, if you can back it up with quotes, go for it. Yeah. Secondly, is develop your own gore. Don't be afraid to step out from the norm. As far as you don't have to follow what everybody else is doing. Years ago, I remember that people were running around towel, Master Rocker towel, Rammer towel, Dave and everything else, and it's like, hey, how are you doing? You know, but yeah, and if you didn't do the whole towel thing, and as far as when you were clapping, if you weren't going like this kind of thing, as you weren't a real Gorean, you know, all nonsense stuff. Develop your own individuality. Believe and stand on what is important to you. You know, don't succumb to what the pressure of others. I remember that one of the, well, several things actually, but the whole Gorean versus BDSM thing. There is no versus. It is basically you are Gorean and you can or cannot be kinky. That's your choice. That's nobody else's choice to make for you. That's your individual choice whether you choose to be kinky or not. As far as sexual orientation, I remember a few years ago that, you know, there was a big hubbub, and it seemed to gain some traction within certain circles about the fact that, you know, Gore was straight, you know, strictly straight heterosexual, and that was it. And you know, I watched this debate going on, and I watched the maneuvering, and some people were very vocal and trashing anyone that was not, you know, that didn't identify as straight heterosexual. And then I made a list of how many of these men had slaves that were bisexual, homoflexual, heteroflexual, you know, undecided, non-applicable, and I ended up coming up with a list, like it was close to like 50 names of between masters and their slaves that were not just strictly heterosexual. And all the kerfuffle that caused, and people backtracking and backpedaling and changing their profiles and doing a whole bunch of nonsense things. And it's like, you know, you are telling people that you are this, and yet at the same time you have a slave that is bisexual, and you're trashing anybody that is not just a straight person or whatever. You can't be doing that shit, you know. Sexual orientation doesn't really play into it that much. Who cares who you sleep with? Shouldn't be that big of a deal. But to many it is. It's the be all and end all kind of thing. And they'll take, you know, personal shots at you. Wow, you're this or you're that or whatever. Okay, that has nothing to do with the conversation that we're discussing right now. But people will continue to do those kind of things. One other thing with Master Morality is that, you know, cherish your freedom. You know, you choose to believe what you believe. You are not collared to anyone else. You are not under anyone else's authority. That's one of the joys of being Gorean, is that we are fiercely independent. We enjoy our freedom. We cherish our freedom, and we will fight for our freedom. So, anyhow, that's all I want to be able to share with you today. Hopefully you guys are having a great day. And as the jersey says, go Rangers go.